What would you have done with Kane? His only chance to stay alive seemed to rest with getting him into the infirmary, where the autodoc could work on him as soon as possible. His condition has been stabilized. I'm inclined to give credit for that to the machine and its rapid treatment, the early application of antisepsis and intravenous feeding. He also appeals to Ripley's reverence of the quarantine procedure, weighing it against the moral responsibility of letting a fellow crewmate die. Ash told her, "I'm aware of the rules regarding quarantine and alien life forms, probably more so than you. I had to balance them against a man's life. Maybe I should have let him die out there. Maybe I have jeopardized the rest of us. But I know one thing. Rule makers always draw up their precious rules and regulations in safety and comfort, not out in the field where those same absolutes are supposed to be applied. At those times we have to rely on our own minds and feelings. That's what I did. I have already voluntarily entered my actions into the official log and will subject myself to whatever decision the company may make in that matter. Yes, it's my official position. Remember that the prime consideration of science is the protection and betterment of human life. I would never contravene that." Knowing Ripley, these appeals still wouldn't work, as convincing as Ash was in displaying humanity. She would still perceive the risk to be too high and wouldn't agree to break quarantine. At some point, eventually, Ash may have used force against Ripley just as he does in the film, and likely Parker and Brett would be around to back her up, and Ash would be destroyed. In the film, Ash was reassembled to see if there's any way to kill the alien, so in this scenario he probably wouldn't be interrogated, and they would probably accept it as a severe malfunction. But that still leaves 3 of the crew outside the ship during a 24-hour quarantine. Even after the facehugger falls off and dies, Ripley would still insist on enforcing the full 24 hours, regardless. Kane would come to eventually, and things would start to look hopeful for a while, until, of course, the chestburster makes its way out of Kane. Would the newly born xenomorph hide? Would it attack Dallas and Lambert? Would they try to kill the alien using one of their weapons? Would it eventually grow large enough to take them both and bring them back to the space jockey, where they would serve as hosts to alien eggs waiting inside? Either way, they most definitely would not be getting back on the Nostromo. This would lead to a difficult discussion between Ripley, Parker, and Brett. Though Ripley is in charge, she'd want their input. At this point, repairs still needed to be made to the Nostromo, and once it was capable of taking off, would it be doing so while leaving behind or jettisoning quarantine? I think Ripley could make a fair enough argument that, realistically, Lambert and Dallas are as good as dead. If they weren't to be attacked and killed by the thing, then for all Ripley and the rest knew, they could also be carrying parasites and not even know it. They'd ultimately agree to not taking any further risks and would take off and return to Earth to follow whatever procedure was necessary following such an event. The 3 survivors, Ripley, Parker, and Brett, would all report the same story of the organism on Kane's face and the malfunctioning android. No foul play, no laws broken, company quarantine procedures followed to a T. The secret order they were following wouldn't have been fulfilled and Special Order 937 would be a failure, but the Nostromo's data and the exact coordinates of the space jockey on LV-426 would now be in Weyland-Yutani's hands. The surviving Nostromo crew would probably have to sign non-disclosure agreements regarding their depositions, thanked for their work, and be on their way. Hell, they'd probably be promoted. First rights to a newly discovered organism, the coordinates delivered to Weyland-Yutani on a silver platter, only 3 casualties? This would be a great bargain for the company. Ripley would be able to come home to Amanda just in time for her 11th birthday. She'd have kept her promise to her daughter. This, of course, was something that weighed heavy on Ripley's mind the entire time. Alien Out of the Shadows, the novel by Tim Levin, explains that Amanda was very upset to see her mom leave for such a long time. And before the Nostromo's mission, Ripley swore to Amanda she'd be home in time for her birthday, and that she'd get her, quote, the best present ever. Maybe she'd adopt Jonesy and bring Amanda home a new pet. Personally, I think Jonesy would be the best present ever, so who knows. But for Ripley, there would be no never-ending nightmare of fighting against the alien. She'd be able to return to as normal of a life and career as she originally intended, at least for some time. Ripley has always been a hero of circumstance. If these circumstances change, such as the scenario here, Ripley would be in no special position to prevent the xenomorph specimens from coming to Earth. This was Weyland-Yutani's intention all along, of course, and Ripley, unwittingly and unintentionally, would have helped them achieve this. If the alien never got aboard the Nostromo, the company eventually would get access to the xenomorph specimens regardless. The very fact that the alien stowed away on the Nostromo, and that Ripley was there to destroy it, hindered Weyland-Yutani's special order to gain a specimen. The fact that Ripley also destroyed the Nostromo, and the coordinates of the space jockey on Mother's computer along with it, hindered the company in knowing the coordinates of the space jockey, setting them back 57 years. With all evidence on the Nostromo wiped out, Weyland-Yutani opted to terraform, colonize, and survey LV-426, a process which took years, and ultimately still depended on the deposition of Ellen Ripley in order to find the coordinates. Once the alien got on the Nostromo, Ripley's life changed forever, and she was destined to protect the world from the danger of the xenomorph. With that never happening, Weyland-Yutani would be able to send a well-financed expedition to the jockey and gather specimens. They'd follow their own procedures and bribe whoever they'd need to bribe at ICC quarantine, and would soon have xenomorph specimens at their bioweapons lab on Earth. The Weyland-Yutani report gives some insight as to what the company exactly wants and what their exact intentions are with the xenomorph. It is believed that the specimens would lead to advances in pharmacology, bioengineering, and defense, with the appropriate technology and studies. How long would they be able to contain these specimens? How many specimens would they gather, and how fast would they multiply? Your guess is as good as mine, but eventually containment would fail. If there's one certainty about the xenomorph, it's that it can't be locked away and contained. It can't be controlled, and eventually specimens would escape captivity, and an outbreak on Earth would follow. In the 1988 Aliens comic series, there was a xenomorph outbreak on Earth, and it wasn't pretty. For a more detailed outline of what a xenomorph outbreak on Earth would look like, you can check out the video, The Xenomorph Outbreak on Earth, Accounts of the Earth War, on the end screen or in the description box. You can also check out the video Weyland-Yutani's Intentions with Xenomorph XX121 for more details on the company's plans with their specimens. This video, of course, was just for fun, a what-if scenario exploring what may have happened with Ripley, the Nostromo crew, and Weyland-Yutani if things went a little bit differently. Do you agree with this proposed scenario? Do you think things may have turned out in another way? Are there other what-if scenarios you'd like to see explored on this channel? Comment below and let me know. And as always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to Weyland-Yutani Executive, Emuric, part of the Patreon Hive. I'd also like to thank our Hive's queen, Lady Anne. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow at @alien_theory on Twitter and at @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off. When Hicks, Newt, and Bueller arrived at Base 3 instead of the expected xenomorph cargo, General Spears did not meet the group with the warmest of welcomes. Threats of sedition charges and other legal and physical threats followed with a swift apprehension of the survivors into custody at Spears' command. The second in command of the base, Major Eugene Powell, grew increasingly concerned over Spears' recent behavior. The General's reaction to the loss of the xenomorph specimens raised this concern even higher, inspiring Powell to keep a daily log to keep track of Spears and the ongoing experiments taking place on the base. Log on, eyes only, override clearance A1A required. Major Eugene Powell, USCM. In light of recent events, I've opened a daily log to summarize my assessment of Base Commander Spears' fitness for duty. I realize these notes could be construed as mutinous, even traitorous, but it has fallen to me to keep some sort of record. At 0900 hours, I relieved Lieutenant Bainbridge and took over a duty officer in the main habitat. I observed General Spears alone near one of the containment vessels. He seemed to be watching them. At 10:23 hours, I overheard the General mutter something under his breath. He was smiling as he said it, repeating it to himself several times. Perfection. The General's behavior has been erratic for months, but I noticed a marked change for the worse with the arrival of the cargo vessel from Earth. 2 humans and a synthetic had commandeered the ship at launch. During the voyage, they somehow destroyed a cluster of Spears' incubated specimens. General Spears' research and development team had been waiting on the xenomorph specimens in order to study the possible mutations brought on by the creature's multiple human strains. A sweep of the vessel, however, confirmed there were no salvageable specimens. Apparently, the lowest survivable setting on the sleep chambers was sufficient to keep the specimens themselves dormant. The containers were dead. Usual exit mode, to judge from the blood spray patterns, and mostly consumed. The adult stage specimens apparently killed one of their own and utilized its blood to burn free of an area in which they were contained. Acid burns in various places indicated a battle between the stowaways and the aliens. I have done a preliminary debriefing of the CM Sergeant, and from this report determined that one was killed by weapons fire on board, and the other 2 were ejected into space. Apparently, the female stowaway went EVA and battled the remaining pair, who survived for some minutes in hard vacuum without apparent ill effect. The corpses of the 2 killed on ship were ejected. I had never seen the General so angry, so disappointed. The mission to attain the specimens from the American, as Spears deemed it, was considered priority 1. The stowaways had lost communications soon after launch and had come to believe Earth's alien plagues had been destroyed by an all-out nuclear attack. None of that was of any concern to General Spears. The General's obsession with the alien has clouded his reason. He answers to no authority but his own. The prisoners could have provided important information about Earth, about our future. Instead, Spears has quarantined them for use as alien breeding stock. I've seen enough killing. It has to stop. The General has his loyalists, but it's only a matter of time before there is open rebellion. And God help us when it starts. Log off. In this series, I'm recounting the Earth War, as depicted in the Aliens comic series. The accounts are explored as originally published, despite certain names, locations, and other events having been altered over time.